Hey peeps, here I'm going to do a patch walkthrough of what you just heard at the beginning of the video. I don't usually do these, but I liked this one and kind of wanted to try to remember it, so I'll just get started. So there's basically three elements to this patch. There's the chord element, and there's the arpeggiator kind of thing that's going, which is up here. And then there's the ocean whooshing sound, which is just noise through a filter. So for starters, what's running the whole thing is the Pittsburgh modular game system. It's in this mode that looks like asteroids, or I don't remember what it's called, but basically it's just going at a really slow tempo, and this little dot bounces around on its own. And whenever it collides with one of these green dots, it outputs a random voltage out of output 1 and outputs a gate out of output 2. So what's happening there is I'm taking that random voltage and it's traveling up here to the Addac intuitive quantizer, and I've got it set to, I believe, like A major, I think. Since it's a random voltage, I wasn't real concerned about the key or anything of this, but I did want it to be like in tune. So this is basically making it, you know, somewhere in the A major scale. Before I ran it in there, I actually ran it through a attenuator first because it was causing the pitch really high and really low. And when I ran it through the attenuator, it kind of settled it down a little bit. So it's going through that, then out of the quantizer, it's going into the Portamento processor on the Roland 555 module. That is so, before I put that in, it was just jumping between the chords too fast, so it just adds a little slide to it to make it smoother sounding. So then finally out of that control voltage is going down to the volt per octave input of the qubit Chord version 2. And I've got it set on the harmonize mode right there. And I believe it's on a major key. Again, I wasn't real concerned about the pitch, but and that basically takes the volt per octave input and tries to make chord harmonies that make sense to the root. And the only thing I did to tune it was I took the root output into the tuner at some point just to make sure it's in tune with something. I think I tuned it to a C, I believe, when it was on the major chord. So from there, I wanted a bunch of movement to it. So I've got all four voices of the chord, the root, third, fifth, and seventh. They're all going into the qubit tone module, which is basically just 4 filters. They're all outputting through the low pass, the resonance about half up. And by itself, I'll play a little bit of it. That's also got the arpeggiator going. Let me turn that off. And so each one has its own filter because I want it to have a lot of movement. And so I've got all 4 filters have a separate LFO on each one that are not synced to anything. Now I didn't have 4 LFOs that are identical, so 2 of them are coming from maths in the cycle mode, just going really slow, as you can kind of see there. And the other 2 are coming from the Dreadbox Antiphon. Oscillators 7 and 8, when you turn them way down, are like an LFO, and I just have them slowed way down. And they're on the 5th and 7th. So they're basically just sweeping the filter up and down, just on all 4 of them randomly. So it sounds interesting. From there, all 4 outputs, low pass outs, are going up to the Roland 531 mixer, And I've got them panned. I think first and third are center, fifth is one left or right, and the seventh is the other way. That way it's just kind of panned out. The other kind of cool thing to do with it when it's not just running on its own is to kind of play with how fast the LFOs are going. It sounds especially cool on the fifth and the seventh when it starts kind of going fast. Okay, so the next element of this is that really slow arpeggiator. I'm using the WMD Arpitecht for that. It's getting its clock from the game system. Output 4 just outputs a clock for every time it moves. That's at a really slow tempo, as you can see. So that's clocking it. I've got the volt per octave and gate. Volt per octaves go into the Roland 510, which is the like a whole voice in one module. It's the oscillator, filter, and VCA. And the gate is going to the Roland 540 on one of the envelopes. And then both outputs of the envelope are doing the VCA and the VCF. Just kind of a blippy kind of sound. Here, I'll turn that on for a second. Pretty basic. And so the output of that is also going to the Roland 531 to the first input. And I've got the pan with an LFO going into it. So it's going back and forth really, really slow. Just so it looks like a sine wave from the 555 module. And I forgot to talk about the voice itself. It's just a triangle wave mostly and a little bit of square wave. A little bit of resonance. Yeah, so, and the envelope's just set decay all the way up and quite a bit of release. So that gives you that whole thing. And they're all going through this. So, and then the output of that stereo output goes back down to my main mixer, which is the WMD Performance Mixer, into one of the stereo channels. And on effects end A, I've got reverb, which is the Pittsburgh Modular Verbtronic, set in tronic mode. Really high mix and feedback, kind of. So it's just tons of reverb on it to make it echoey. So then the last element of this is the whooshing. There it is. So it is, the noise is coming from the Synthrotek DSM, which is like a drum module, but it can also output noise, kind of in the middle setting. And I've got it going into the Doepher A124 wasp filter, that one. And let's see, it's in low pass mode, and it's being swept by an LFO once again. And I found another LFO over here. It's from my Erica Synths drum modules. It's the Modulator. Just doing a slow sine wave. The phase a little bit off, sweeping it up and down. And it also has a whole ton of the Verbtronic reverb on it too. And that is pretty much the whole patch. I thought it sounded pretty cool and wanted to make note of it. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.